about, I think, 27 or 28 slides. So it's very short and it's very simple. Okay. I think I've had this lecture before last year. So for the overview of our lecture, of course, we have to start with the definition of development and how to elicit a complete developmental history. Along with that, we also have to know the red flags of developmental disorders and discuss the different behavioral problems and their principles of management. So let's start. What is development? So development is a process where a child acquires new skills and it begins prenatally and extends into young adulthood. It is a nervous system process with additional influences from the health status of other organ systems and the physical and social environment. It is also important to note that development is cephalocaudal, meaning it starts from the head going downward and out. Okay, so in other words, development is multifactorial. It's not affected by nutrition alone or your environment alone. It's multifactorial. So it's subdivided into streams. First, you have your gross motor. So this encompasses actions such as rolling over, walking, um, pulling oneself to stand, and your fine motor. This is where babies they pick up things with their fingers. They how they hold a pen, how they scribble, draw circles, draw squares, like that. Verbal language is expressive or receptive, it's self-explanatory, and your social language is your social cues. So this pertains to babies having eye contact, listening to you, or turning their head towards you when you call them. Okay, or if they or if they express interest in what you are doing. This is what you call your social language. So what encompasses a complete developmental history? So your developmental history is composed of your developmental surveillance. So it should be done at every well child visit. And it is a process where the physician or pediatrician recognizes children who are at risk for developmental and behavioral conditions. It has the following components. So the first is eliciting and attending to the parents' concerns about their child's development. For this first part, your questions should be open-ended. And then after asking an open-ended question, whatever the response is, you then go into the specifics. And for their concerns, it should be verbatim, meaning they are taken as they are, as presented by the parent. So if a parent tells you that my son does not look at me when I talk, or when I call him, he does not turn his head. You have to write it as it is. You don't mix medical jargon into your history, especially in your developmental history. If the parent has certain observations regarding their child, do not underestimate the observation. Sometimes these signs can be very subtle. For example, if the child has um, certain mannerisms that you think is a red flag, do not underestimate this. So this might be the first sign of your autism or maybe a different behavioral disorder. Second, obtaining, documenting, and maintaining a developmental history. So this is self-explanatory. Third, making accurate and informed observations of the child. So it's similar to number two. So your proper and accurate documentation should be done since observations are taken longitudinally. So um you have an observation made at 3 months and then you document another observation at 4 months. This can be very different. Okay, the changes are subtle, but they are important. For example, um I have 3 kids. Okay, so my second born, I remember when she was still 11 months old, she was having difficulty walking. Okay, she could stand up, she could pull herself up to stand. She walks with while holding the wall. Okay, but we were out of town for about just 5 days. This is just 5 days, 5 days. When we got back short time, uh, then when we got back, she learned to walk. So you can actually see the changes, okay, the very subtle changes. So it's important to note these specific things. Number four, identifying risk, strengths, and protective factors. Take note, not all parents or families are same. So they may be abusive, protective. You have if you have parents who are very proactive, sometimes you can see the difference in their child's development. Okay? Some may also be well off. Some may be stricken with poverty. So it's not the same. Some families are more technology inclined, exposing their children earlier to screen time. Some are more okay? Whether nature or nurture. Uh, Hello. Sorry, I was disconnected. Wait, all right. So again, other families, to continue, are more traditional in child rearing. So whether nature or nurture, it is your duty as the physician to establish these facts and work your way around these factors. Not to mention that you should be familiar with the red flags in order to determine whether the child is already in danger of a certain developmental delay. So we will get to the red flags later. Okay, but before we get to the red flags, we have to know what's normal. Number five, maintaining an accurate record um, of the process and findings. Number six, sharing and obtaining opinions and findings with other professionals. So this is where your referral comes in. When in doubt, and if you have difficulty in diagnosing the patient, it is never wrong to refer to the appropriate professionals, especially if you are a general physician or a general pediatrician. You can always refer these cases to your developmental pediatricians, your specialist. Okay. So when developmental surveillance detects risk or when anytime parents express concerns about their child's development, you have to do your developmental screening. So it is different. Your developmental surveillance is should be done at every visit, right? But your developmental screening, it is not. You only do this when you have risk, or you can routinely do this at specific ages. So you have your 9 months, 18 months, 24 months, and yearly thereafter. Okay. It is a standardized tool. Usually what we use is the MCHAT-R or the PEDS, your Parents Evaluation of Developmental Status, and your modified checklist for autism in toddlers. Both of these standardized tools are used for are no are used by parents. So they're the ones who will answer this. And it's up to the physician to interpret the answers of the parents. We'll not go into detail. That's already for one good pediatric specialty. But it's an example and should are in the text. So for developmental milestones, each child develops at his or her own pace. So normal is a wide range, and red flags are absolute indicators. So if you already have red flags, this is already suggestive for behavioral or developmental delay. So I'm not sure if you encountered these milestones before in your second year, but let's review them. Okay, this is from the CDC. This is what the department gave me to use for your lecture. Actually, there's if you compare this CDC milestone checklist from the one in Nelson's, it's different. But there are only a few differences now. Okay. So at age 2 months, for your social and emotional milestones, so your baby can already calm down when spoken to, looks at your face, smiles. So this is very common, the smile. This is what you call the social smile when you talk to your baby. Okay. They also make other sounds than crying, and they also looks at the toy in front for several seconds. So they already have a short attention span. Okay. So what's usually seen in 2-month-old patients is you hold them up, and then, or when you put them on your tummy, they can already support their head. Okay, that's what's common. So if you see a 2-month-old not supporting his or her own head while being held up, that's already a red flag. Okay. At 4 months, so the patient already chuckles, not yet a full laugh, but just a chuckle, makes sounds like ooh and ah. This is what you call cooing. Okay. Also the control of the head is more steady. Okay, even without support when you are holding 4-month-olds, and they already hold a toy when you put it in the hand. Okay. What else? So they also turn their head towards the sound of your voice. So if you call them by their name, commonly they turn their head. Okay, and they also bring the hands to the mouth. It's common at 4 months old. At 6 months old, um, they are already familiar with people, so they have stranger anxiety. So if you give them to people who they're not familiar with, they cry. No. Also, they like to put things in their mouth to explore. So they also roll over. So usually when you have uh, a baby or an infant who does not roll over readily at 6 months, this can be a sign of uh, neuromuscular problem, but not all the time. Okay, some maybe delayed for a few, like 2 months or maybe a month or more, but it's expected 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, they can already roll over. Okay, from tummy to back. What else? At 9 months, so 9 months usually they are shy and clingy and fearful around strangers. So your stranger anxiety is more pronounced at 9 months old. Sometimes they have already an ability to recognize people. So they are more attached to the parents or maybe to the guardian. If they see a relative who is not familiar, they will cry if they try to carry them. And okay, what else? They also make other sounds. So they already say mama, mama, baba, baba, da, 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 da. Okay, repetitive sounds that sound alike. What else? They already bang two things together and they start to sit. Okay, they sit without support. Here, sit without support. At 12 months, so actually in Nelson's the wave bye bye is at around 9 months to 10 months, but here it's 12 months. Anyway, at 12 months they already play games like peekaboo or pata cake. They also wave bye bye. Okay, they also pull themselves up to stand. But the earliest you can observe infants who pull themselves up to stand is 10 months actually. Even at 10 months, you can already walk while holding furniture at 10 months. Okay. That's what you call cruising. Okay, 10 months. At 12 months, some some babies or some patients they already walk, but just a few steps. Mama Dada. Okay, Mama Dada. Also normal milestone at 12 months. Okay, what else? Finger. Okay, very common observations. Okay. So as a pediatrician or as a general physician, you have to be familiar with your milestones because if you don't ask these milestones specifically to the mother, then you might not be able to elicit a proper developmental history. Okay. So I'm just giving you guys a heads up that in the exam there will be a lot of questions regarding milestones. If I'm not mistaken, 10 questions from my part. So I suggest you study this, okay? You familiarize this because there is no other way to learn the developmental milestones that other than memorization. Okay. So at 15 months, this is the time where their social or and emotional milestones are more pronounced. So they start to play with other children. Even though they have solitary play, they start to have cooperative play at 15 months. Okay. Sometimes they share, sometimes they don't, but it's a start. Okay. So sorry. They also show you affection. So they already hug, cuddle, and kiss at 15 months. And as for language and communication, they already try to say two words beside mama or dada. Okay. They also follow directions. Sometimes they follow one-step commands at 15 months. So give me the toy, open your mouth, like that. For cognitive, they stack at least two of small objects like blocks and try to use things the right way, like a cup, uh, maybe a book. Okay. Movement takes a few steps on his own. Actually, you can already see this as early as 12 to 13 months, but this source it's it at 15 months. Okay, at 18 months. So this is usually remember if you recall your routine developmental screening, right? You have to do this at 9 months, 18 months. So usually at 18 months, this is already almost 2 years old, right? This is actually the time where you can you can already recognize autism because the average age of diagnosing autism spectrum disorder is at 2 years old. So at 18 months, usually for the social or verbal milestones, they you already can find red flags. Okay, so what's an example? Think here, this one. Tries to say three or more words besides mama or dada. Actually, the exact description for this milestone is at least 10 words. So at 18 months, your patient or the infant should be at least, or toddler at this stage, toddler should be able to say at least 10 words already. Okay. So mama, dada, ball, dog, cat, words like that. Okay. It can be simple words, but they have to have at least 10 words already at 18 months. If the baby or the patient or has less than 10 words, that's already a red flag. Okay. What else? So they copy things that you're doing. For example, sweeping the floor. Sometimes children copy this, or when you're doing your makeup or combing your hair, they try to follow you. Scribbles. So a common milestone. The patient tries to scribble with a pen or a crayon and drinks from a cup without a lid. Okay. This is um this is similar lang. Tries to use a spoon, so they try to mimic you. Yes. Climbing. So at 2 years old. So at 2 years old, usually at 2 years old, your patients can already point things to where you are. So I mean, point things to where they are at. So for example, you ask, oh, "Where's the bear?" They point it. Or if they want to if they want something, they can ask for it. Okay, at 2 years old, more milk, or I'm done, or um, more food, like that. They can also recognize already body parts. So if you ask them to point their eyes, their nose, they already know where these body parts are located. And they use more gestures aside from just waving and pointing. They can already nod. Uh, they can already blow kisses. For your gross motor, you can kick a ball, runs, walks up a few stairs, and eats with a spoon. Okay, at 30 months, so this is around almost 3 years old. So at 30 months, they can already say, look at me, or they follow simple routines like, uh, for example, cleaning up toys. They can already do that. Okay. They also develop cooperative play at this time. Okay, so they play with other children, although they may not play nice, but they still play with other children. And their words are about 50 words. Okay, see, from 10 words at 18 months, at 30 months, it should be about 50 words. And they also combine those words to make simple sentences like doggy run, or uh, the cat is climbing, like that. Okay. They also they also do pretend play, by the way. So this is a common common observation in normal toddlers pretend play. So actually in the MCHAT-R, there's a question there. Although I don't have a copy right now, but there's a question in MCHAT-R where it asks if the child plays pretend. Okay. If you say no to that, that's actually red flag still for the one of the signs of your autism spectrum disorder. Okay? They also show simple problem solving skills, like standing on a stool or getting a chair to reach something. It's very basic. They also follow two-step instructions, like um, put the toy down and or put the toy down and then come eat, like that. So they follow those kinds of instructions. So they also take some of their clothes off. Okay, they they take their pants off. They know how to take the diaper off. Okay? this is just a continuation. So 3 years. So what's notable here is that you can already ask who, what, where questions. So who are you? What's your name? Where do you live? Where is mommy and daddy? Like that. Okay. They already know their first name. They say thank you. And they also already aware of their surroundings. So if they think that it's dangerous, they are more careful. Okay. What else? They draw circles. They also put some clothes on by themselves, like pants or maybe a hat, like that. At 4 years, their pretend play is more profound. Okay, so they pretend to be someone else. Like maybe I'll pretend to be a teacher and you will be the students. Okay, so my kids they usually do that. We pretend play. Sometimes they pretend to be doctors or the nurse, and I'm just a patient, like that. They also name a few colors and a few letters also. Okay, they say their sentences are more complete, 4 or more words. Okay, so I'm not gonna go into more specific na lang ha, but just I just want you guys to run through this. Okay, so what are your red flags? Let's move on to the red flags. So your red flags at neonatal period, usually the muscle tone is too low, okay, to feed. So what do you mean? Usually in your neonate, their muscle tone is very brisk. No, but if you have seen patients in your clinical rotation who have Down syndrome, you can actually see that they are very hypotonic when they are born. No, they're floppy babies. You have difficulty feeding in these types of patients. At 2 months, another red flag is cannot raise the head when prone. Okay. 4 months, unable to bring hands to midline. At 6 months, does not pass object from one hand to another. See, if you can, if you can, if you can't memorize the normal developmental milestones, then you won't be able to note your red flags. So that's why I keep repeating this that you have to memorize your developmental milestones. This is for the motor lang ha, motor. So at 9 months, inability to sit. Remember, if at 9 months you should be sit without support, and it should be lack of rolling. Remember, at 6 months you should be able to roll from your tummy to the back, or from the back to the tummy. Right. 12 months does not stand or bear weight on legs when supported. Remember, at 10 months you can already cruise. At 12 months you can already walk. 15 months no pincer grasp. 18 months inability to walk independently. Why? Because remember, at 15 months, they should be able to take few steps on their own. So if you can see the leeway, it's actually at least 3 months leeway before you can actually say that it's a red flag. So 24 months inability to walk well. Remember what at 24 months or at 2 years, what does the toddler do? Di ba? They already run at this age, 24 months. So, if you can't walk well at 2 years old or 24 months, it's already a red flag, obviously. 36 months, frequent falling or difficulty with stairs. 4 years, does not jump in place. 5 years, does not draw pictures, square or across, and has poor balance. For your language, your red flag at neonatal period, the infant does not respond to loud sounds. So, how do you interpret this? So maybe the infant is deaf, probably, or maybe a hearing problem. At 2 months, is not alert to voice. At 4 months, no cooing or gurgling sounds. 6 months, lack of turning toward voices. So the first 6 months of life, you can actually tell if the patient has a hearing problem or not. Because they are alert to loud sounds, but if not, you can actually suspect hearing problems at this time. 9 months, lack of balance. babbling. 12 months does not respond to name and does not understand no. Um, 15 and 18 months, see, not using at least 6 words. And 24 months lack of word and 2 word meaningful sentences and inability to follow simple commands. So this is actually a red flag for your autism spectrum. Okay, they don't have social social skills and they lack uh verbal one verbal cues. At 4 years, unclear speech or does not answer simple questions and does not use pronouns like me, you, like that. 5 years, inability to rhyme and inability to recognize shapes, letters, and colors. 6 to 12 years, cannot retell or summarize a story with beginning, middle, and end. So that's actually a red flag. Uh, so, Doc, what type of behavioral disorder is common in these ages? So, usually, if you don't have autism spectrum if you can't diagnose autism spectrum disorder by age 2 years old, and then some signs and symptoms occur during the school age, you can actually think of learning disorder. Okay, there's also learning disorders. So, for your social or emotional red flag, neonate, actually, this is caregiver, uh, an observation towards a caregiver. So the caregiver shows indifference or disinterest in an infant. So what does this mean? So this means that possible that the infant is unwanted or unwanted child, or maybe your caregiver of abuse, and this was kuan, murag unwanted niya child. Okay, so that's a red flag. Or maybe you're already looking at uh, you're already looking at potential for child abuse if the caregiver shows indifference. So this is also a red flag. Not just for the koan neonate, but also for the caregiver. 2 months lacks of looking or face or looking at faces or lack of fixation. 4 months lack of smiling. Remember, at 2 months old, you already have your social smile. It's expected by 4 months. If you don't have this smiling, it's a red flag. What else? I'll just breeze through this. You can read this, but usually what's very common, a common complaint of parents is this one, absence of back and forth smiles and vocalizations in conversation. And also, they do not look where caregiver points. Okay? Sometimes the toddler does not care. Even if you point at something, they don't look, that's already a big red flag. Also, they ignore other children, they don't do pretend play. This is also very common. Okay, so I'm done with the first part. I have another slide. Wait, let me open it now. Okay, so we're already done with the definition of development. We're already done with the complete development history and the red flags of developmental disorders. So now let's discuss the different behavioral problems. So first we have your anger, temper tantrums, and disobedience. So behavioral symptoms are of varying levels and varying levels of severity, such as anger, temper tantrums, and disobedience. Often, these children arguing with adults or refusing to comply with adult rules and requests, and they are very common during childhood and adolescence, but they are transient. Okay, some children and adolescents exhibit extreme difficulty and challenging behavior that is outside the norm of their age. But I say this is transient because they are a result from temporary stressors in the child's life, or they may also represent a more enduring problem. Okay, because some children who have difficulty obeying at an earlier age, they actually develop into oppositional defiant disorder. So you have to take a thorough history. Only children and adolescents with lasting or moderate to severe degree of psychological, social, educational, or occupational difficulty in different settings should be diagnosed as having behavioral problems. So between boys and girls, boys are more likely than girls to suffer from behavioral problems. And the most common is your oppositional defiant disorder and your conduct disorder. So both these disorders may be similar and lie on a continuum, but uh, the progression from ODD to CD is it increases with age. So children with ODD usually manifest this behavior at around 8 years. Um, and then conduct disorder is a more serious condition where typically it is not diagnosed until adolescents. Okay. So these adolescents with conduct disorder, they may violate social rules that involve breaking the law, and also their acts may lead to a serious injury. So they are like juvenile delinquents. Okay. So symptoms: extreme irritability and anger, frequent and severe temper tantrums, arguing with adults, and they defy or refuse to comply with their requests or rules. And they also have difficulty getting along with others. Yeah. Do you have friends who are like this? Well, maybe they have undiagnosed conduct disorder. Okay. I can recall I had when I was still a kid, I had neighbors who were like this. You know? Now they are in the in correctional facilities. Right? Other symptoms include provocative behavior, excessive levels of fighting or bullying, cruelty to animals or people, and severe destructiveness to property, such as fire setting, stealing, repeated lying, absence from school, running away from home. So if you have these types of symptoms, it is um, it is imperative that you investigate more. Maybe if they have ODD or CD. So consider behavioral problems if all of the following are present. Symptoms are present in multiple settings such as home, school, and leisure activities, and they last for at least 6 months. Symptoms are more severe than ordinary childish mischief or adolescent rebelliousness and have a persistent pattern which violates the basic rights of others. Symptoms can cause major difficulty with daily functioning at home, school, and relationships. Do not assign the diagnosis conduct disorder in view of the associated stigma. So you have to refer to a specialist for thorough assessment. So our our responsibility as a general physician or general pediatrician is to screen. So if you already have suspicion of conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder, you refer properly. Okay. Do not be a hero. You can always refer if the case is difficult. So for your you have to assess whether the behavior or conduct complaints can be considered normal behavior. So what is considered normal behavior? So this is what this table is about. So it highlights the age-appropriate behavior that is accepted in children as long as they do not satisfy the criteria previously mentioned. So at 18 months to 5 years, refusing to do what they are told, breaking rules, arguing, whining, exaggerating, telling lies, denying they did anything wrong. So also their tantrums are brief, usually less than 5 minutes, not longer than 25, less than 3 times per week. So this is just a normal child or 18 months to 5 years. Okay, it's what you call toddlers. Okay, 6 to 12 years, avoidance of or delay in following instructions, complaining or arguing with adults or other children, occasionally losing their temper. This is also very common. Okay, school age children, nani, 13 to 18 years, they test rules and limits. No? They insist rules and limits do not apply to them or are unfair. They are rude, dismissive, argumentative, defiant with adults. Typical teenager. We've all been there, I think. Excuse me. Um, Also, you have to consider the following other causes or coexisting conditions: attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, neglect in the family or violence in the family, or maybe they are stress at home. So you also have to consider that substance use and abuse, learning disability, and schizophrenia. So, for example, you have a school age child who is very talkative in school. Maybe and they do not finish tasks. They do not they cannot hold a conversation for a few minutes or a few seconds. So you have to consider attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But you have to recall that these symptoms are not only present in school, but they are also present at home. So if they are present at home, at school, or even in during leisure activities, then you have to consider attention hyperactivity disorder. Okay. For learning disabilities, usually they are most common presentation is they fail in school. Okay. They have good social relationships. Um they're not abused, they're not neglected, they're healthy, no frequent illnesses, but they have difficulty concentrating at school, they fail, they have low grades. It's actually a very common presentation of learning disability. Okay. Schizophrenia, I will discuss this I think in the next session tomorrow. Let's just move on. For management, you have to determine the whether the problems can be managed with advice and reassurance if the child requires or if the child requires specialist referral. And you have to provide guidance on child or adolescent well-being and provide psychosocial interventions addressing the child or adolescent caregivers and teachers. So it's very complex, the management of your behavioral disorders. So if you cannot achieve your goals for these types of patients, you have to refer. Aside from that, you have to investigate whether the child or adolescent's environment can be improved. So if the school setting can be improved, or maybe other activities that can improve with the child's behavior. And you also have to assess for stressors, so violence, family problems, social problems, reduce their stress as well, and strengthen social support. And as always, link with other available resources in the community. So um, if you have patients who have history of child abuse or neglect, refer them to the social worker. If you have patients who have developmental delays, refer them to a developmental specialist. Okay. Keyword refer. Okay. Offer follow-up, but do not offer pharmacological treatment. Again, refer serious cases to a specialist for assessment and comprehensive treatment plan. If no improvement or if there is predicted danger to the child, refer to a specialist for further assessment and advice on the management. Okay, always refer. Next, you have difficulties with social interaction and communication. So to start off with this type of disorder, you have in your history, you have to ask about concerns regarding language, speech, hearing, and vision. Okay. Social and communication behaviors, you have to ask with regards to relationships and interest in adults and other children, preference for playing alone, and their responsiveness to other people's feelings. You also have to have a grasp of their understanding of and addition to social norms. Okay. You have to take a comprehensive history, usually from the caregivers, um, as well as from the teachers, and you have to also assess all developmental domains according to age, including language, movement, social interaction, and play activities. Okay. else? Play patterns. So you have to look at their play patterns. Is it imaginative or repetitive? Common presentation of your autism spectrum disorder um, is that these types of patients they have repetitive play. Okay, they tend to line up toys and they are attached to a specific toy, just one toy. Actually, I have a actually I have a brother who is autistic. So if I remember he was diagnosed at around 2.5 years old. I was first year high school back then. Then looking back, actually we already saw the signs of autism. So he had repetitive hand gestures. He had hand flapping, and he was attached to one toy, and this toy was just a stick. Okay, he would rep- he would repeatedly bang the stick on the window. Okay, he likes to bang the stick on the window. That's what I remember. Okay, and he also likes to line up his toys. He does not play with the toys. He just lines up the toys, and then he plays with the stick. It's very repetitive. Every day he does that. No changes in the no changes in the pattern of play. Okay, even as early as 1 year old, we already saw that. Next, ability to cope with changes in the daily routine. So autism patients usually have difficulty in this. So they have a daily routine. You stick to it. If they don't stick to it, they throw a tantrum. Okay. Also, family history of mental, neurological, or substance abuse, and neglect as well, and violence. For the psychosocial history, you have to ask for the coping methods and social support, such as your family, school, and community services, and the functioning at home. How how does the home function? Is it dysfunctional? Is it supportive? Or it depends. Also, the school and relationships. So you have to ask that as well. Maybe the patient has poor relationship with teachers or classmates, okay? Or maybe there's bullying in school. Relationship with parents and caregivers. Also, again, situation at home. This differs from the functioning at home because not all functional homes are living in a good condition, and not homes are not all homes are in a good who are in a good condition are functional. So what do I mean? For example, you are takes care of the kids. Hello, sorry again. I apologize for the interruption. My internet is acting up. Okay, so back to the topic. So, like I said, not all homes are the same. So you can have a home who is well off, but they're not functional. Why? Because maybe the father is an absentee father, or maybe the dad is a workaholic, so he's not always around, and the mother also works, so there's no one caring for the child. So the child grows up with no family support or support from the parents. So although they are well off or they have money, you can't always say that they grew up in a supportive home. So it's really different. You have to ask. Next, we're almost done. I'm already on the 18th slide out of 28. 10 more slides. So, examination. So, observe facial expressions and eye contact throughout the visit and perform a hearing assessment. So, maybe your patient is just having hearing problems. That's why they have. So, if you have hearing problems, of course, it follows that you have difficulty with communication. Okay? So, differential diagnosis, so very common. Autism spectrum disorder, they have reduced eye contact and facial expressions. They slowly acquire language and they have reduced use of language as well. They have no social interest or reduced social interest in others, and they have repetitive pattern of behavior, interest, or activities. For GDD or global developmental delay, they have delay in reaching milestones. Social responses and communication is usually appropriate for developmental level. For language problems, they have difficulty or delay in the use of language. They have reduced vocabulary, although they can talk, but their vocabulary is reduced. And they also have difficulty understanding words or sentences. Okay. Um, this differential diagnosis is from DSM-5. Okay. So if you have already suspicion that if the patient has autism spectrum or GDD or language problem, you refer immediately. Okay. Hearing problems or hearing loss of any cause, normal social interaction is reduced. There, I'm sorry, there's normal social interaction, normal eye contact. They just cannot hear. Okay. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So history of maternal alcohol consumption during pregnancy and their facial features. They have short palpebral fissures, thin upper lip, smooth philtrum. Okay. So who's a prominent what's this? Prominent figure you can think of who has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder or looks like fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Do you know Greta Thunberg? Greta Thunberg, the activist? She looks like a fetal alcohol spectrum person. Looks like lang. I'm not sure if she is, but she looks like it. So if you can see this photo, this one, letter D, that's the one. What else? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So excessive inattention, inability to concentrate on a task for more than a few minutes, and they often lose personal belongings. Okay. Okay. Another differential diagnosis is oppositional defiant disorder. Um, I will not delve into that. Schizophrenia, they have problems with thinking, reasoning, puzzling ideas, or speech, and they confuse dreams with reality. They also are withdrawn from their friends and family. They have trouble sleeping. They lack motivation, and they have a drop in school grades. This is a new disorder actually. Problematic use of internet and social media. Okay, this is actually very novel. Uh, the use of screens or mobile devices for many hours and late at night with harmful use such as displaying and exchanging sexist and racist opinions, cyberbullying, boasting of illicit activities, or self-harming behavior. So take note, guys. Maybe you have this problematic use of internet and social media. Okay. Substance abuse. History of repetitive substance abuse such as alcohol, illicit drugs, tobacco, smoke, okay, vaping also. Attention or overactivity. So inattention, inability to stay still for a long time, a lack of concentration, distractibility, or difficulty completing tasks are common complaints from caregivers or teachers. In most cases, these behaviors are part of a normal development of the child and adolescent. However, when they are long lasting and severe, or when they interfere with daily functioning and affect personal, family, social, and educational or occupational life, they may be part of a deeper seated problem. Okay? For a while, guys. Excuse me, sir.
Doc, wala na may audio, Doc.
So, no questions, you guys. Hello?
Yes, Doc. Yes, Doc.
No questions, siya?
No questions, sir, Doc.
Okay. Did you hear the last part or naputol ko?
Putol, Doc.
Oh, so where ko naputol? Can you tell me?
After sa history, Doc.
Okay, after history. Sorry. So, after this one, this slide, or sa ADHD na? Here.
Yes, after na, Doc.
Yes, Doc. Yes.
Okay. So, basically, on the differential diagnosis, I just gonna recall na lang. Basically, the differential diagnosis, you have to rule out organic cause first before going into ADHD. Okay. Other than that, you have substance abuse, self-explanatory. I've mentioned this earlier. Depression, bipolar syndrome. I'll discuss this next session. So I'm not focused on this one now. Okay. ODD, we'll discuss this. Schizophrenia, I'll discuss this later in next session. Okay. So that's it. So if you have if you have suspicion of your ADHD, refer. Simple as that. Refer. Okay. It's not your job at this level to diagnose. Okay. What's important, the goal is to screen and to identify. Leave the management to the specialist. Once you're a specialist, then you can talk about management. Pero based lang sa source, which is Kani Pocketbook of Healthcare for Children and Adolescents by the WHO. This was given to me by the department. So the test or the exam the questions will be taken from this source. Okay. So that ends our lecture. Good for 1 hour lang good.
Thank you,
Alright,
Doc.
no more questions, no? Kay, we'll end the meeting.
Thank you, Doc.
Nandra, Doc.
Okay.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay, so I'll just give you a copy of the slides, ha? Okay, so make sure you study the developmental milestones, guys. Please, daghan kay, there are a lot of questions from that part. 10 man siguro, 10. Okay, so thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Doc.
Rashid, I'll send the lecture or the slides to you.
Yes, Doc.
Okay.